If your team has 1 point and you still don't know whether they're alive, you are not alone. Right now, millions of people are typing World Cup Standings 2026 into Google because the group tables look simple on the surface and turn into a math problem the second two teams are tied. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how a World Cup group gets settled, including the one rule FIFA changed for this tournament that almost nobody has explained properly, and the real scandal from decades ago that's the reason these rules exist at all. If you appreciate this type of content, gently tap that like button. Let's get into it. Start with the part everyone already knows. A win is worth 3 points, a draw is worth 1 point each, a loss is worth 0. 3 games per team in the group stage, so the most any team can finish with is 9 points, and the fewest is 0. That part is simple. The confusion starts the moment 2 teams land on the same number, and in a 48-team tournament split into 12 groups of 4, that happens constantly. With only 3 games per team in a group of 4, you are statistically almost guaranteed at least one tie on points somewhere in the group, and usually several across the whole tournament at once. So let's talk about the format itself, because 2026 is not run the same way the World Cup has been run for decades. This is the first 48-team World Cup, expanded up from 32 teams, and it's split into 12 groups of 4. In the old 32-team 8-group format, the top 2 from each group moved on, simple and clean, 16 teams through. That math doesn't translate cleanly to 12 groups, so FIFA built a slightly more complicated system to fill out a balanced bracket. The top 2 teams from each of the 12 groups qualify automatically. That's 24 teams. Then, instead of stopping there, FIFA takes the 8 best third-place teams from across all 12 groups and lets them in too. 24 plus 8 equals 32 teams, and those 32 move into a brand new round of 32 that didn't exist in previous tournaments. Before the bracket narrows the usual way after that, down to 16, then 8, then 4, then the final. Sit with that for a second, because it's the part most explainers skip entirely. Finishing third in your group does not eliminate you anymore. It used to, every single time, no exceptions. Now it puts you into a separate, invisible competition against the other 11 third-place teams scattered across the tournament. And only the best 8 of those 12 survive into the bracket. So when you're watching a match and a team is sitting third in their group with 4 points, they're not just hoping to climb past someone in their own table. They're also being ranked, in real time, based on the performance of all the other third-place teams. That's the new reality, and that's how the World Cup group settles in 2026, against teams in completely different groups that they are not even playing and may never play. That's a big part of why Group Standings 2026 is spiking the way it is right now. People aren't just confused about their own group anymore. They're confused about a leaderboard that spans the entire tournament and updates as every other group's matches finish too. Now here's where it gets genuinely complicated, and where the actual rule change for this tournament matters. When teams are level on points within a group, FIFA works through a strict order of tiebreakers, one at a time, only moving to the next one if the previous one is also still tied. For 2026, that order is head-to-head result first, then head-to-head goal difference, then head-to-head goals scored, then overall goal difference across all group games, then overall goals scored across all group games, then fair play conduct, and only if every single one of those is somehow still tied, FIFA's official world ranking, or in the rarest possible scenario, a literal drawing of lots. Here's the part that actually changed, and the part almost nobody explained well when it was announced. In previous World Cups, overall goal difference was the first tiebreaker. If 2 teams were tied on points, FIFA immediately compared their total goal difference across all 3 group games before looking at anything else. For 2026, FIFA flipped that order completely. Head-to-head result is now first, ahead of every goal-based stat. That sounds like a small technical tweak. It is not. It changes how a team should actually approach their final group game. Let's walk through exactly what that means with a worked example. Say Team A and Team B finish level on points after 3 games each. Under the old rule, the next step was immediately comparing their overall goal difference across the whole group. Win 5-0 against the weakest team in the group, and that blowout could be enough to leapfrog a direct rival, even if you'd lost to that rival head-to-head. Under the new 2026 rule, none of that gets checked first. FIFA goes straight to the one match where A and B actually played each other. If A beat B in that game, A finishes above B, full stop, regardless of how many goals either team scored against anyone else in the group. The big win against the weakest team in the group doesn't even get looked at until every relevant head-to-head comparison between the tied teams is exhausted first. Now here's the contradiction buried inside that rule, and it's been called out as a genuinely brutal side effect for one very specific scenario: a 3-way tie. Picture 3 teams all level on points, and the results form a triangle. Team A beat Team B. Team B beat Team C. Team C beat Team A. Everybody beat somebody, and everybody also lost to somebody. Head-to-head literally cannot separate those 3 teams, because there is no team with a clean head-to-head record over the other 2. In that exact situation, FIFA's own tiebreaker order skips past head-to-head entirely for that group of 3 and jumps straight to overall goal difference instead, which is the exact stat the new rule was supposed to deprioritize. So the rule built to reward who beat who can completely cancel itself out the moment a 3-way knot forms, and the tournament ends up deciding things on goal difference anyway, just like it used to. It's one of the stranger quirks buried in the regulations, and it's exactly the kind of detail that turns a simple-looking points table into a 40-minute argument among fans trying to do the math themselves. And this isn't some rare theoretical edge case either. With 12 separate groups of 4 teams all playing simultaneously in the final round, the odds that at least one group somewhere in the tournament produces a 3-way tie are genuinely high, which means this exact contradiction, head-to-head technically being the priority rule right up until it isn't, is something that's realistically going to come up multiple times across the course of the tournament, not just in a hypothetical. So why does FIFA care this much about head-to-head order in the first place? Because of something that actually happened, and it's one of the most embarrassing moments in World Cup history. At the 1982 World Cup in Spain, West Germany and Austria played their final group game in the city of Gijón, knowing the exact result that would send both of them through at the expense of Algeria, who had already finished their own games. West Germany scored early, went 1-0 up, and the moment that scoreline guaranteed both German-speaking teams qualified, both sides essentially stopped trying. For the last 40 minutes of that match, including stoppage time, neither team made a single serious attempt to score again. It became known as the disgrace of Gijón, and it's the entire reason FIFA changed the rules so that the final round of group games is always played at the exact same kickoff time across every match in that group. Every World Cup since 1986. Nobody could ever again sit back and calculate exactly what scoreline benefits them, because every other result in the group is happening live, simultaneously, with no way to react to it. That scandal from over 4 decades ago is the quiet reason this tournament's tiebreaker system is built the way it is, designed specifically so 2 teams can never again script a result between themselves. Now, let's talk about how FIFA ranks the 8 best third-place teams, because this is its own separate puzzle layered on top of everything else. You've got 12 different third-place finishers, one from each group, who never played each other in the group stage, and never will. FIFA can't use head-to-head for any of them because there isn't one to use. So this comparison runs almost entirely on raw stats: points first, then goal difference, then goals scored, then fair play conduct, then world ranking. Here's a worked example of why that's not a perfectly fair system. Imagine Group A is brutally difficult, packed with 3 strong, well-ranked teams, and the third-place finisher there picks up 4 points with a goal difference of -1, having genuinely competed with 2 excellent sides. Now imagine Group F is far weaker, and the third-place finisher there beats up on a clearly outmatched 4th team, finishing with 4 points and a goal difference of +3. On paper, using these tiebreakers, the team from the easy group looks better and gets the spot. The team that arguably played the tougher tournament gets left out. It's not a perfect system. It's just the system. And it's worth understanding before you assume your team is safe just because they're technically sitting third with a decent points total. Let's actually walk through fair play, because almost nobody understands how close this tiebreaker has come to deciding a real World Cup outcome before. Fair play conduct is calculated using a points deduction system based on cards picked up across the group stage. A single yellow card costs a team a small deduction. A second yellow in the same match that leads to a red costs more. A straight red card costs more again. And a yellow followed later by a red in the same match has its own separate value. The team with the fewest total deduction points wins this tiebreaker. This sounds like a footnote until you hear what actually happened at the 2018 World Cup in Russia. Japan and Senegal finished their group completely level. Same points, same goal difference, same goals scored, same goals conceded. And they'd even drawn their head-to-head match against each other. Every tiebreaker above fair play came back perfectly tied, all the way down the list. The decision came down to yellow cards. Japan had picked up 4 across the group stage. Senegal had picked up 6. That 2-card gap was the entire difference. Japan advanced to the round of 16. Senegal went home. The first team in World Cup history eliminated on the fair play tiebreaker alone, on a tournament where they hadn't lost a single tiebreaker that actually involved a ball going into a net. So yes, in a tied scenario, a handful of needless yellow cards picked up across 3 separate games, in moments that felt completely meaningless at the time, can end up being the entire reason a team goes home instead of advancing. And if fair play somehow ties too, which is extraordinarily rare, but technically written into the rule book anyway, FIFA falls back on the official FIFA World Ranking at the moment the World Cup begins. If even that comes back tied, it genuinely comes down to a drawing of lots, an actual physical draw to decide which team advances. It almost never gets that far down the list. But the fact that the regulations account for every single one of these scenarios tells you exactly how seriously this tournament treats the integrity of a 48-team table, where this many things can plausibly go wrong at once. If any of this sounds familiar, it's because club competitions run on a similar idea, just at a smaller scale. Anyone who's watched a Champions League group stage has seen 2 clubs finish level on points, and then sit through a broadcast graphic explaining head-to-head, then goal difference, then goals scored, in almost the exact same order. The difference is scale and stakes. A Champions League group is 4 teams who all know early in the season that there's another tournament next year regardless. A World Cup group is 4 teams who, for some of these players, will never get another shot at this stage in their entire career. The tiebreaker math is the same shape. The pressure behind it is not. Here's another wrinkle that trips people up when they're checking the table mid-tournament. Goal difference isn't just goals scored minus goals conceded in a vacuum. It has to be read inside whichever stage of the comparison you're in. Inside the head-to-head check, FIFA only counts the goals from the matches between the specific tied teams, nothing else. Inside the overall check, it counts every goal from all 3 group games, including the ones against the team that finished last. People scroll to the bottom of the stats app, see one team with a better overall goal difference, and assume that settles it, without realizing the head-to-head number further up the list may have already ended the conversation before overall goal difference was ever relevant. So why does any of this actually matter beyond settling arguments at a watch party? Because your exact group position determines your entire road through the bracket. Group winners get matched against a specific slot of runner-up or third-place teams in the new round of 32. Runners-up get matched differently, and the 8 surviving third-place teams get slotted in based on which groups they came from, built specifically so that where possible, teams from the same region or confederation don't end up facing each other again immediately. Finish first instead of second in your own group, and you could end up facing a completely different opponent in the next round. Sometimes a far easier matchup, sometimes a brutal one, purely depending on how the rest of the bracket lines up around you. That single head-to-head tiebreaker we walked through earlier, the one that can single-handedly decide first place versus second place, isn't just about pride or a nicer-looking final table. It can be the difference between a winnable round of 32 matchup and a genuine nightmare. There's one more layer worth knowing, because it explains why the bracket can sometimes look lopsided on paper, even after all that math is settled. FIFA doesn't just slot the 8 best third-place teams in randomly. The bracket is pre-built with specific placeholder slots, and which third-place team lands in which slot depends on exactly which group they came from. This matters because FIFA also tries to keep teams from the same continental confederation apart for as long as possible in the early knockout rounds. So 2 European teams or 2 South American teams who never crossed paths in the group stage aren't immediately thrown at each other in the round of 32 if it can be avoided. That means the path through the bracket isn't just determined by how good your group position was, it's also shaped by geography and which confederations happen to produce the surviving third-place teams that year. A team that finishes second in a brutal group can sometimes end up with an easier round of 32 draw than a team that won a weaker group outright, purely because of how the confederation's spacing rules land. It's one more reason 2 fans can look at the exact same standings table and have completely different read on how good or bad their team's position actually is. So next time you're staring at a group table with 2 teams tied on 4 points and no idea who's actually through, you now know the real order of operations. Head-to-head first, unless it's a 3-way tie that cancels itself out completely. Then goal difference, then goals scored, then fair play conduct, then world ranking, then, in the rarest case imaginable, an actual drawing of lots. 7 separate layers, each one only relevant if every layer above it failed to produce a clear answer, stacked specifically so the table never has to leave anything to a guess. It looks like a simple list of numbers sitting in a table on your phone. It's actually a strict legal order that FIFA spent decades building, line by line, scandal by scandal, specifically so nobody in a stadium, in a broadcast booth, or at FIFA headquarters ever has to make a judgment call again. Every single step exists because at some point in this tournament's history, leaving it to chance or opinion went badly enough that someone had to write a permanent rule to make sure it never happened that way again. It's also worth remembering why this version of the format exists at all. Going from 32 teams to 48 was always going to create more group games, more simultaneous storylines, and more chances for a tied table to need a tiebreaker. FIFA accepted that trade-off because more teams means more countries with a real stake in the tournament, more matches sold, and a group stage that simply has more moving parts than fans have ever had to track at once. That's part of why the standings questions are spiking the way they are right now. This isn't a format anyone has lived through before. Everyone, casual fans and lifelong fans alike, is learning these exact rules for the first time, at the same time, in real time, during the actual tournament. And if you want to go deeper on how this tournament's bracket actually gets built once the group stage wraps up entirely, I made a video on exactly that. You can check it out by clicking right here.